Okay, mic on. You can hear me, guys? Thanks, Jingy. I have a little bit of a cough, but hopefully that'll be okay. I've been drinking liters of water, Mike. Most important thing is I don't have to run to the bathroom in the middle of this. I'll be fine. I can be heard on YouTube. Don't worry, I'll try not to say anything too bad. I won't swear or anything. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the fourth in this series of workshops that we're holding for you. I hope you've got something useful out of the previous ones we've been doing so far, and hope you will again from this one. We're going to be circling back just a little bit today because you'll remember last week we talked about the importance of sources of information. So it's not just the information and the content itself that we're paying attention to. It's very important to know where information is coming from and why it is coming from those kind of sources. So let's dive straight in to analyzing and investigating sources. So we're going to look at investigating who is behind a piece of content or information, and also looking overall at people's digital footprint. Now, when we're looking at a digital footprint, we mean somebody's overall online activity. And knowing more about what a person is doing online and what kind of presence they have online can do a lot to help you to evaluate who that person is, to look at what kind of expertise, what kind of background knowledge, what kind of relevant knowledge they may have, and also things like affiliations, memberships, peer groups, and arising from this, what kind of motivations somebody may have, whether they have a bias, prejudice, an agenda. Now, we know we all have our own certain biases, but hopefully, as journalists, we manage to keep them in check most of the time. And when we're looking at members of the public, we have to watch for what I mentioned last week as overcommitment to an agenda. Everyone has an agenda of some type, but you have to watch when somebody is committed to an agenda to such an extent that it may color their behavior and their practices. So, always when you see a piece of information or content online, the first thing is always to check your gut, your instinctive reaction to something. Now, I've had people say to me before, oh, this doesn't sound very scientific or this doesn't sound very journalistic. But you will find with a gut reaction that when you step back and examine why you're getting that reaction, there is probably a good reason behind it based on your previous experience. So try to deconstruct why you are getting the gut reaction that you are. So start looking at things like, does this make me want to buy something? Is it trying to sell or promote something? Because obviously the financial motivation is one of the most powerful distorting factors you can have in the spread of disinformation. Is somebody trying to sell you a cure? Is somebody trying to get you involved in a crypto scheme, something like this? So if you're feeling when you see this, oh, maybe I should buy that, maybe I should buy into that, this is one of the gut reactions to watch out for. If your instinct is, oh, I should share this, I should like it, I should subscribe to the channel, I should send this on to my friends. So this is a sign that the thing is quite effectively soliciting engagement. This is closely related to the first point I was making when somebody is trying to sell something, because engagement, of course, is something that is very often monetized. So is somebody trying to build a following that they can then monetize, or of course that they can then use later to try to sell or promote things to you? The next thing is, when you see something, do you feel angry towards someone? Do you feel scared of someone? Because this may very well not be accidental. It could be the actual motivation of somebody sharing this in the first place. Are they trying to encourage or disseminate fear or hate of a certain group? This could be sectarian, it could be ethnic, it could be religious, it could be political, but always watch out when a piece of information or a piece of content gives rise to this strong reaction in you that you hate or fear somebody because of it. And then finally, when you see something, does it make you laugh? Do you find yourself shocked or entertained by it? There's nothing wrong with this, of course, but when it gets to the point where you realize that this is deliberately the reaction someone is looking for, the motivation in this case may be just simply mischief, somebody having a bit of fun online. And of course, when somebody is being mischievous, it doesn't follow that they're always going to be completely honest with you. So, again, these are all things that can be distorting factors in the spread and creation of content and information. All of these things can be strong signposts to watch out and to check whether something is legitimate. So, we've already seen this last week when I talked about sources in the first place. These are the things that you should be looking for in a good or reliable source. First of all, that the source is identifiable, because if it's not identifiable as being the actual source of something, then a lot of your other checks will fall through, because you've no way of knowing about the person who actually created or initiated this piece of content or information. Again, that the person actually has firsthand knowledge, so that they're not saying something like, my cousin's brother's neighbor said such and such. We want as closely as possible to have this person to have firsthand knowledge of the thing that they're speaking about or writing about. Next, has the person got relevant expertise? If somebody is showing you information or content related to COVID, for example, what if you find out that that person is actually a baker or a firefighter or something like that? Does this person have expertise that is relevant to the thing that they're trying to convince you of? Because you will see a lot of this online, and people joke about things like, well, I'm fed up of being an expert in epidemics and viruses and so on. This week, I'm going to be an expert in national security. And then the one that I've already mentioned today and last week is checking whether somebody is strongly committed to a certain agenda. And if this is the case, of course, then there is motivation and possible cause for them to not be as honest with the information or content as they should be. So, all of these things, again, if one of them is lacking, or if more than one of them is lacking, it's a red flag. You have to be careful. So, why is source analysis important? What are the things that it can bring to you? What is the useful information that you can get by analyzing a source? Well, of course, as we said, it can tell you about someone's identity, who they are, where they are, which may be possible, which may be relevant when you're talking about whether they have knowledge of the thing they're talking about. So, if someone is talking about something that just happened in Jakarta, but you find out that they are in New York, well, you have to question whether their information is relevant. Then, as I said, it can help you find out whether their expertise and experience and knowledge of a subject is relevant and is therefore supporting the facts that they're trying to push. Then things like connections. Connections can take many forms. It can be something to do with where they work. It can simply be to do with their peer groups, the people that they identify with, and the people that they communicate with on a regular basis. Do they have certain affiliations? Are they members of organizations? These could be civic organizations, they could be political organizations, they could be neighborhood groups. But all of these things, while they may be good or bad to a greater or lesser extent, all of them have the potential to have an effect and an influence on the person who belongs to them. So that brings us on to looking at what then is this person's motivation? What are their possible biases or prejudices? Do they have an agenda? How strongly are they committed to this agenda? Are they likely to take that agenda into account and allow it to influence them when they're sharing content or information? So, all of these things you have to try to be cognizant of and wary of. And then, of course, the last one, when you're looking at a source, if you can get contact details, all the better, because most journalists, there nowadays a lot of people are trying to build up as much of a picture and build up as much information on a person online as possible. But any of you who are as old as me, of my vintage, will remember when we couldn't really do that, and you had to go out and question people. That approach is still relevant and still important. That if you can get in touch with someone and ask them questions, excuse me, it will be helpful to you. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip of water. I have a slight cough today, but it'll be fine. So don't forget that contacting somebody directly is still an important skill, and we can't just depend on what we can do virtually. So I always encourage people to take the keep it simple approach as much as possible and not complicate things any more than is necessary. Always start with the simplest thing that will work and move on to more complex and deeper techniques as they become necessary, but always start with the basics. And search engines, of course, are something that not only will bring us loads of information, but there's something that we're all familiar with and we're all used to using on a regular basis. So it can be extremely helpful. Simply Googling or using whatever search engine takes your fancy, maybe use several search engines because it might bring you a variety of information. But start by searching on this person or this source. So if you were looking into me, for example, the first thing you would do would be just search my name. Now, one thing to think of straight away, because you might get way too many results, you might get far too many false positives, is to consider using the simple search operator of putting something into quote marks. Now it will bring back just when this appears as a full phrase, not everybody called Owen and everybody called Sweeney. It's just going to search for people called Owen Sweeney. So that will narrow things down immediately for you. But don't just start with the basics, vary the basics. When you do your simple text search, it can be also good to go through some of the other tabs in the search results. Here you see what comes up in the images tab. You could also click on the videos tab or the news tab, because these things will bring you a variety of results. And as you can see, about a little under half of these are relevant to me. Then there are numerous others. I should just say for the record, that is not me. He's got more hair than me for a start. But as you can see, there will be other people who have the same name as the target of your investigation. So you need to make sure that you make a quick call on which results are actually relevant. Now, there are other things you can do then. If you look at, for example, have you got an email address for that person? And here's an email address for me. If you use this and search for it, it'll bring you to another possible source of information, because I have put it a couple of times at the bottom of blog posts that I have written. So things like that. You could also even do things like guessing whether that person is on some of the major email platforms. You could try my name with @gmail.com, for example, or @yahoo.com, or whatever email service is being commonly used. And these are all things that will just bring you on a little bit further and hopefully open up further avenues of investigation for you. Now, I think my old friend Malachi will forgive me for putting him back up on the screen again. We had him last week. But when you're looking at the elements of a good source, again, you will see here that he's got his profile photograph is himself. He's got his real name. He also has his name in both his display name and the actual uh, Twitter handle, which you can see directly underneath it. That's not the case for me because I used a nickname from way back in the day. And then before I got a chance to change it, I was verified. And once you were verified, changing your actual Twitter handle would lose you the verification. I'll go into it in a moment why I'm not that bothered about that anymore. But you can see here, Malachi also mentions where he works. He gives a phone number that can be used to contact him either by phone or signal. I'm not sure whether he uses WhatsApp, but if he does, presumably the same phone number would work. And he has a link to the department of the New York Times in which he works. And if you go to New York Times Visual Investigations section, you will see his byline mentioned very often. And of course, none of these things are ever 100% guarantees, but they're all helping you to build up a bigger picture of who someone is and how reliable they thus may be. Excuse me. So, one thing that's become an issue is what I'm calling the end of true verification on Twitter. Uh, I have a blue tick on Twitter. I'm not sure it's any use anymore, but when I got it at the time, it was a bit of a special case, and several of my colleagues got it at the time. We were working in an agency that was doing numerous projects with Twitter. So, despite the fact that we weren't well known or celebrities or big names or anything, we were able to get Twitter to verify quite a few of us because we persuaded them that it would help us in our work with them. And we had to go through a pretty comprehensive process where we had to produce all kinds of information in order to get this Twitter verification tick. So, as a result of that, for a long time, I was quite trusting of the blue verification tick in Twitter. These days, it's pretty much irrelevant. You will see this kind of thing. It's a bit of a trend at the moment, and you'll see here a blog promoting the Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck. And I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of these things seem to be promoting or defending Tesla and various other companies belonged to Twitter's new CEO. But you will see straight away underneath it says 2023 will definitely be the year of the Cybertruck. And 12 months from now, Tesla, and it says with instead of will, have the last laugh. And you will see a lot of these conversations going on now. And as you go down through a conversation, you will see people commenting who have blue ticks. And if you were careless, you might think, oh, this is a credible person. But when you look at that one, it's a blue tick. The picture is of what appears to be, I think, a French bulldog who don't usually type very well on Twitter. It has a single name, Winston. It has a Twitter nickname that's different to that and has a couple of numbers in it. And it generally does not look like what you would expect a verified account, a properly verified account to look like. But it does have a blue tick. Why does it have a blue tick? And I'm sure some of you will have guessed this already. If you go to it, it says these things like it has a couple of flags in it, meme finder and savage commentator, 32 followers. This is starting to look worse and worse. So why does it have the blue tick? It's a verified account, and it says this account is verified because it's subscribed to Twitter Blue. So this account has got the blue verification tick by paying $8 per month to Twitter, which I guess we'll all agree that's not exactly a fantastic way to verify somebody. And this is happening more and more. I've been watching this over the past couple of months, and it's happening a lot. You have another comment on the same tweet there. I'm so stoked to be one of the first in my valley to have one of these beasts, OMG. And this one does appear to have some kind of a profile pic, but when you look at it, you'll see it's not very convincing looking. It does have something that looks like a name, but it's clearly, if you're interested in the world of crypto and Bitcoin and things like that, you'll recognize it as being a reference to that whole world. And once again, when you go to the blue tick on this and you click on it, it will tell you that it's verified because it's subscribed to Twitter Blue. Now, so far, so okay, but it would not surprise me if the ability to click on the tick and find this out disappears at some stage. Things are quite erratic at the top in Twitter at the moment, so trying to depend on anything like this could be a foolish proposition. So, a quick checklist of some of the things you can look into. Again, these do not result in a guarantee, but we're trying to build a picture of a stronger tendency towards something being real and legitimate. So, does it have a real name? Can you then go and search that name? Can you find out more about the person through searching that name? Does it have a real photo? When I say a real photo, I'll contrast that with something else a little bit later. Does it mention a workplace? Because if it does, you have more avenues for investigation. Maybe that workplace has a website. Excuse me. Maybe that person is mentioned on the website. Maybe you can go and cross reference things by looking at LinkedIn related to that workplace. See, is this person listed among people on LinkedIn who work there? Is there a pattern of activity? Does this person constantly push a particular agenda or a particular product or something? Who are their peers? What are their relationships? Who are the kind of people that they are retweeting or promoting, and so on? And then, are there links to other online accounts? And this is something that we found out quite a long time ago, and you'll still notice it, that, of course, nobody has just one online account. I'd be very surprised if any of you here today told me, well, I'm on Facebook, but nothing else. It's possible, but it's not very common. So one of the things is that when you go to people's different online accounts, you will very often find that they share different little snippets of information. So on Instagram, they may have their email address underneath. On Facebook, they may have a link to their YouTube channel. You go to their YouTube channel, it might give you a link to their blog, and so on. So the more of these things that you can find, the bigger picture and more detailed picture you can build of who this person is and what kind of person they are. Now, if we want to first of all look at Twitter, and I do focus quite a lot on Twitter because although it's not the most commonly used platform in some countries, it is used a lot by journalists. It's used a lot by good sources like professionals, people, scientists, doctors, and so on. And that has held up to now to a reasonable extent. So it is important to be aware of it. And you will find that a lot of disinformation starts out on Twitter and then eventually spreads to the platform that is most used in your country. So it's, even if you're not looking at it daily and using it daily yourself, it's good to understand it to a certain extent. It's good to keep an eye on it. These are a number of tools which can be very helpful for checking Twitter accounts. Spoonbill is one that I've liked for several years, and there is one newsroom that told me they use it almost every day. I have noticed recently a lot of results are coming back blank on it, and I think that could be related to two things. Number one, just the proliferation of new accounts is hard for Spoonbill to keep up with. It's the product of a single developer who's a very good guy and very responsive when I reach out to him, but he is a single developer. So it may be that Spoonbill is not able to catalog as much as and index as much as he wants, but also just because the creation and proliferation of fake accounts has also just increased a lot. So a lot of accounts have not made any changes. They're just sitting there waiting to put out this information. Now, what Spoonbill does is you can put in accounts and it will show you whether the profile on that account has changed in any way. And I'll give you an example in a moment, because you may go to a few random accounts and try this and get nothing. It doesn't mean it's not working. So it says that it will let you see profiles from the people you follow on Twitter. You don't necessarily need to be following someone on Twitter to see these, but you need to know one little trick, that instead of going to the Spoonbill website and trying to put in the search, you put this into your browser bar. So if you're not following an account, you just go to your browser address bar and put in spoonbill.io/Twitter/data/ and then the actual username. Don't put in the word username. I had somebody in a workshop say to me, this isn't working. I keep getting a 404 page, but they actually had this whole thing in there. So the actual username of the Twitter user that you want to look into. A lot of the time, it won't bring anything back. That means either the profile has not made any changes or it hasn't been fully indexed by Spoonbill. Here's an example. The current leader of Brazil, known commonly as Lula, and if you put his account into Spoonbill, you will find that on November the 8th last year, a change was made to his Twitter profile, which says President-elect of Brazil. So that's a nice little way of tracking something that happened in his life, although you may be able to find that through other sources. But little things like this can be helpful. You can see whether someone has changed their name, whether they have changed other details in their profile, and whether, as a result, they may be trying to trick people. The next tool I'll ask you to take a look at is a tool called Account Analysis. And this is by a guy I know pretty well, Luca Hammer. He's a German programmer. Very good guy, is very cognizant of issues around privacy and security. So I can say with confidence that if you use this site, you won't be getting malware or tracking or anything like that. He's a very good guy and is very committed to security and privacy. This allows you to look at somebody's Twitter account and analyze certain things about it. It brings back a lot of details. You can see here at the top of the page, it's telling you when somebody is tweeting. This is one of the guys we saw in the previous slide who was promoting the Tesla truck. And if you put his Twitter handle into Account Analysis, you will see that the hashtags he's using most are Bitcoin, SpaceX, Dogecoin, all these kind of things. So obviously this person is spending a lot of time promoting either crypto or Tesla products. You see the users that he replies to. One of the top ones there is actually Elon Musk. The people he's retweeting, the top one is Elon Musk. And then you can see some of the URLs that he has tweeted out. And these are all ways of, again, figuring out somebody's agenda, their circles in which they operate online, and so on. And this one, straight away, you can see, okay, this guy's big thing is crypto and Musk, basically. One thing that Luca has added to this program recently is the ability to narrow down the analysis. So you just put your mouse over that calendar or calendar bar graph, whatever you want to call it there, and you can drag and select a certain date range down to a day or a week or 2 weeks, whatever you want, and it will then give you the relevant statistics for the date range that you have selected, and it's a nice little addition to the service. A similar app, and I like to give people, where there are alternatives, give them similar ones. Not simply because they may work slightly differently, but there may be a day when one is down and it's your favorite one, and you go there and you're thinking, oh, what am I going to do now? I'll give you my website address at the end. I keep lists of these kind of things so that if you don't have access to one, or one is not doing what you expected it to do, you can try another. And I always encourage people to vary their approach. TruthNest does pretty much the same stuff. It has a very nice, clean interface. It's very user friendly, and you just scroll down and you see all the different kinds of things that it can show you, and you can see 3 tabs there: activity, network, and influence. And apparently it's telling me my influence is high and my activity is normal. My bot indicator is at 0, which I'm happy with, but we'll see. Another one that I've been looking at quite a bit recently, I believe this one is based in Japan. I'm not sure, do you call it Hutui or how it's pronounced? But again, it's nice. It's very user friendly. It has a very nice graphical interface, which gives you a really good idea of connections and activity and so on. It may not be completely self-explanatory at first. I found this page is very nice. It's a good graphical representation of who they're following and who's following them back. The language is slightly idiosyncratic, I would say. It might take you a moment to figure out what the difference between mutual love, crush, and crushed on are. If you haven't figured out, mutual love is when they've found 2 accounts that follow each other. Crush is when you're following this account that you're analyzing is following an account, which is not following it back, and crushed on is the opposite. An account is following this one, but it is not following that account. So you can see the one that I use professionally rather than my personal Twitter account has a lot more people following me than I follow, because I simply use it to put out information and links to my website and so on. Now, one of the things when you're looking at an online account is who they're linking to and who's linking to them. And anybody can post a link. I can go to my Twitter account and post a link to the White House. That doesn't mean I'm working at the White House. More important is whether there are reciprocal links. Does the White House post a link to me? And I think you can guess the answer is no. So it's not about who somebody is linking to, it's who's linking to them. And as an example, I was looking at this a few days ago. It was a Facebook post by what said it was the Santa Maria Fire Department in California, because California's been getting a lot of flooding. And I noticed that unlike a lot of the fire departments and government entities, it doesn't have a verification tick on Facebook. However, if you go to the City of Santa Maria website and you go through a couple of, there's a social media link at the top, and then this page is about the social media sites. And you can see that it has a link to the fire department's, the city's fire department Facebook page, which is indeed the one that I was just looking at. So you can now be sure that that is a legitimate online presence of Santa Maria Fire Department. A similar thing, we'll go back to our friend Lula, the president of Brazil. If you go to his official homepage, very clearly the first thing you see is links to all the social media accounts that are official. So this is basically, the point is to give people confidence that they're looking at the correct social media accounts, because there are many impersonators. If you're trying to find people's different online accounts, one of the things you can do is use one of these many services that are out there that allow you to search for usernames. These mostly will not work with personal names because they don't recognize spaces. So you take somebody's user handle or nickname, you put it in there, and as you can see, it's telling you that this one is available on certain websites. You can see the ones highlighted in yellow, and on the other ones it says taken. So this may well be the same person who has accounts on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and so on and so on. It's not a guarantee. More than one person can use the same username, but you can then go to each of those and investigate. Now, visuals are also a very important thing, and you will see more and more fake visuals turning up. And one of the things that is causing us difficulties in this is the burgeoning use of AI, of artificial intelligence. It's being used to pump out more and more false visuals. Now, here's a situation I had a few months back where I noticed a new follower, and I just thought, okay, who's this person? Brenda Henley. Looked like a real name. It's got a profile photograph. So I thought, well, let's just check out who Brenda is and figure out why she's following me. Is it somebody I know? Is it somebody who was in a workshop? Is it somebody who just found my website and had decided to follow me on Twitter? Who is Brenda Henley? So I had a look at her main account on Twitter, and straight away there were a couple of things that bothered me. One of them being the handle, not the display name. Brenda Henley looks like a normal person's name. But if you look at the display handle underneath it, it's Brenda H40966431. It strikes me as an unusual name, but also this thing of seeing large strings of digits after as part of a handle is that this can, I won't say it is, but it can be an indicator of automated account creation. And you don't want to be interacting with too many automated accounts. So that made me suspicious. And then there was something just about the photo, and this is from my own accumulated experience. Something about the photo also made me slightly uncomfortable. So I decided to right-click, open the photo in a new tab so I could get the full-sized photo. And now I really started to get suspicious because of having gone through so many of these. This struck me as looking very like an AI, an artificially created photograph. So, for anyone who's not familiar with this, these are photographs that are not uh, stolen from somewhere else. They're not created from an existing photo. These are created completely from scratch by software, by a thing called a GAN network. And so these are people who do not exist. The entire photograph is created by a computer. And in fact, one of the reasons you can say they do not exist is that one of the sites that creates a lot of them is called thispersondoesnotexist.com. I've looked at that site a lot, obviously, and looked at the kind of things, the kind of features that come up in the images that it produces. Some of them are very, very convincing, but there are little things that when you've been looking at these a lot, things start to ring bells for you. If you look at the earring on this woman, it looks a bit weird, like it's broken in two separate pieces. It doesn't look like a real earring. There are some other things, but one of the giveaways, and I will emphasize that this can change, but one of the giveaways right now is that for some reason, I don't fully understand the software, but it seems to need an anchor point for creating these images. And that anchor point right now is the eyes. So all the images created by this website, thispersondoesnotexist.com, the eyes will be in exactly the same place. Now, the more that creators of fake profiles and things realize that, the more difficult it's going to be, because if I were one of them, I would just crop the photo slightly to move the eyes off center. But in this case, it did work for me, because what I did was I went to thispersondoesnotexist.com and I created two fresh images. And I brought these images into my image editor and overlaid those two images and the image of our friend Brenda. And then I just marked the position of the eyes and changed the opacity or the transparency of each picture to get a look at where the eyes were in each. So you see, this is the first fake image that I created. So I marked the eyes with red. Sorry for making it look so sinister. Then I made the layer transparent slowly. And you can see that in my second image that I also created from that site, again, that's where the eyes are. Again, changed that layer, made it transparent, and here's Brenda with her eyes in exactly the same spot. And this is a very common thing with this. Well, it's not just common, it's every time with this. But as I say, there will be ways of getting around this. People will figure it out. Maybe the software will be changed also. But here's just another example. Sorry. Oops, excuse me. This is a whole bunch of other images created by that same software. And you can see with every one of them, the eyes are in exactly the same spot. None of these are real people. These are all images created entirely by software. But as you can see, they have that flaw or that distinctive feature that the pupils of the eyes are all in exactly the same spot. Now, it's not always the case that people will create entirely new profile images. A lot of the time, images will be recycled, as in they will be stolen from elsewhere or taken from elsewhere, and then they will be reused. And some time back, I was looking into a network of fake websites that impersonated real news and information websites and pushed crypto schemes and presumably crypto scams a lot of the time as well. And you'll see this one. I'm not sure how many people know Gordon Ramsay, so the TV celebrity chef, but it's a special report, apparently from the BBC. Brits are listening to celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay, and they're raking in millions from home. And they carry a few more logos just to make it look more impressive. BBC Two, the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Guardian, and what's that? Good Morning Britain. So, for any of you who are fairly knowledgeable about this stuff, it's clear that this is pushing some kind of a Bitcoin or crypto scam. But there are these testimonials down the right side of the page, and I thought I'll just have a look at some of these just for fun. And I reverse image searched the guy in the middle there with the sunglasses, Jonathan Morris from Manchester. And sure enough, I found another website, this time in Turkish. And it was basically, when I Google Translate, it was pretty much the same stuff. It was some well known Turkish person who was pushing crypto. And you can see that Jonathan Morris now has changed his name to Kazim Arslan, and he's now from Izmir in Turkey rather than from Manchester. Went on a little bit more. And now he's Piotr Kasperczyk from Sopot in Poland, in a story that is pushing the same thing to a Polish audience. And he's also known as Aaron Chen from Toronto in Canada, and this is using a well-known Canadian person to push the same kind of stuff. Now, you remember our friend Brenda. I reverse image searched her profile photo, and it brought me back another Twitter account, except this time her name was not Brenda, what was it, Henley or something? Now she's called Claire Allen. She also does seem to live somewhere in the Mediterranean or Adriatic, judging by her profile picture or her background picture. Found another one, and now she's known as Terry Thorne. And again, this person is somewhere in Greece, it looks like. So these were 3 separate Twitter accounts, all with different apparent names, but using the same profile picture, which was obviously a profile picture that was created by AI. So obviously very suspicious behavior, and clearly illegitimate behavior. Now, I want to circle back again and talk about what we talked about at the start, which was text. Another thing you will see being recycled, it's not just the images, it is also the text. And if you look at the opening of this, it says Canadian Connor, what's his name? Connor McDavid has made a name for himself as a brash straight talker who doesn't mind being honest about how he makes his money. And it looks like a real marketing line. And obviously it's trying to persuade people that this guy has the inside know-how, and he knows what he's doing. Do what he's doing, you'll make money too. But I found the language kind of interesting, and I thought, well, let's take some of the key terms in that intro and see if we can come up with anything. So I went back to Google and put in brash, straight talker, honest, makes money, and let's take a punt and see if we can find this anywhere else. And straight away, the top result that came back was a story about Nicole Kidman's latest investment, which has experts in awe and big banks terrified. Most of you will know who Nicole Kidman is, a Hollywood actor, but she's also, according to this, she's a brash straight talker who doesn't mind being honest about how she makes her money. What's the possibility that this is coincidence that 2 people writing about these get-rich-quick celebrities describe them in exactly the same phrase? Clearly close to zero. And as I searched, I was able to find more and more of these websites in various languages. If they were in English, they were using almost exactly this term. And if they were in other languages, they used stuff which was rather similar once you translated it. So watch out for this being done. It's used in these kind of websites. It's used in blogs pushing political or ethnic or religious agendas. It's also used in Facebook posts and tweets. And if you see something that's starting to do numbers on Facebook or Twitter or elsewhere, and you can pick out some, let's say, unusual language, obviously you're not going to pick out simple words that could be used in posts everywhere. But if you can find a few key terms and search for them, or snatches of text, you will very often be able to find other people sharing exactly the same thing. If you then look into these people, you may start to dig up indicators of coordinated behavior. They may have commonalities when you look into them using the techniques that we just talked about for looking at someone's online footprint, that very often it won't just be the phrases that they're sharing. They will also have similar networks. They'll have similar behavior in their online accounts and so on. And one thing I will say to you at this stage is it's very important to remember that these things will change. These fakers will get smarter. The technology for creating these fakes will get better. I'm very concerned about the rise of things like ChatGPT, because they will allow these things to be scaled on a basis that was never the case up to now. So it may be a lot more difficult to track them. So When we tell you these are the tools, these are the techniques, don't forget that the most important thing you can learn is to cultivate the mindset and to look into these things and to try to find out new ways by yourself, to try to find out new links by yourself, because the bad actors will change and develop, and you need to track and stay with them as they do. So always stay curious, always stay creative and imaginative, and that will serve you well and protect you well. So to wrap up, the essentials of source checking. This, of course, is not exhaustive. It's not the be all and end all of source checking. You will, through your experiences, find other things that will work for you in your own culture, in your own locality, in your own language, and so on, that may well be important things to add to this checklist. But first of all, looking into names and nicknames. And as I said, this can be done with search engines. It can be done with these username finders. Don't forget to vary names. For example, an English speaker, if his name is Robert, will he also be online as Rob or Robbie or Bob? Do people use nicknames? And so on. Then looking at their profiles and all the other associated information that you can get about them, trying to find links and commonalities, and so on. And I'll have a question here. I'll give it to you. I'll give you an answer in just a moment. I'll just get through this first. Looking again at the online footprint, because as I say, the more of an online presence you can find for someone, the better. The more information you can get about them. Then looking at their behavior and their connections, their peer groups, their links, their memberships and affiliations, because these may well be indicators of agenda or motivation. And then, of course, as we've just gone through, looking at visuals, not just looking at somebody's profile picture, but for example, they might use their background picture somewhere else. Now, they may have just stolen it from somewhere, but if it is their own, then you might find some of their other accounts. Also, when you're looking at someone's profile pic, always try to look at the best quality version and the largest version that you can, because the background may have legitimate information. I've found people by occasionally not looking at just themselves in their profile picture, but they may be sitting in front of a shop or a business or a street sign or something, and that can give you an idea of where the person actually is. Obviously, that doesn't work when you're looking at artificially created images, but all of these things will help you. They'll help you build a rounder picture, and hopefully will help you to track down more of these fakers and bad actors. So we've got almost 15 minutes for questions. I'm happy to go over that if necessary, or I'm happy to let you go when you're happy to do so. We do have one question in the chat at the moment, which says, what is the website that we can check the non-existing people? The one that I refer to there are several and they're increasing in number. The one I refer to there is simply called, and it's all spelled as a single word, thispersondoesnotexist.com. So just type that out in one go and then put a .com on the end of it. They also, as part of the project that's ongoing and to train the AI and to investigate its capabilities, they also have thiscatdoesnotexist.com and thisHorseDoesNotExist.com. The one with pictures of people is by far the most impressive at the moment. I've got some rather scary and disturbing looking cats and horses from their software. But if you look at it and you go through it, all you have to do is go to thispersondoesnotexist.com and look at a picture of a person will come up straight away. Then you just reload the page. You get a brand new picture. Reload it again, you get another new picture. And if you go through this, you will start seeing things, like I said, the issue with jewelry. Sometimes hair will look unnatural. There'll be kind of a smear effect on the hair. You will see maybe strange alignment in people's teeth. Sometimes there are parts of other people appearing from off frame, because when the network tries to put in more than one person, it normally fails very badly and you get some very bizarre looking people. But it's definitely worth looking at and spending a little time looking at, because it can give you a feeling for these images. Again, keep that mindset that you have to keep up and that you have to keep developing, because artificial intelligence based things improve very, very fast. And if you looked back at what that site was producing 2 years ago compared to what it's producing now, it's quite impressive. Okay, I got another question here. Can websites to check emails and other personal details be trusted? For example, like Spokio. To what extent they can be trusted is it depends on how you use them. Because one of the first things is that websites like Spokio and People, PIPL, and other ones like that. And again, I have a comprehensive list of some of these on my website that you can go and check out. One of the main things is that they're very, very much based on North America and particularly the USA, and largely because so many documents about people are public there. I would say they can be useful in indicator if you're looking at somebody who is based in that part of the world, and just because somebody's over there does not mean that they're irrelevant to your work in Asia Pacific, because you could well be looking at somebody who's based in America and trying to influence events in, say, India or somewhere. So, but always try to check those things. If they say somebody has a court record, you can go directly to places where you can dig up public records on people. They're useful indicators, I'll say that much, but do not regard them as the be all and end all and the final source of correct information on people. They can lead you in the right direction. Yeah. I see a question from Balkrishna. How are you, Balaji? I hope you're doing well. It says, you must have seen that search engines mostly don't show the emails in results, even if they're present. Probably the engines hide them because of spammers. Any effective ways to go around that? I have seen sometimes removing the at or .com of the email works, but not always. Any thoughts on it? Yeah, Balaji, I do have thoughts on it, and they're not necessarily all good ones. Yes, this is something that has increased, that search engines will, as you say, probably for the purpose of not encouraging spam, will not bring back emails a lot of the time. And all I can say is that the approach you are taking is one approach that I would always try. Um, you have to just look for alternatives. If it's not bringing back an email, then you can just be left stumped. There are sites like Hunter, which will look specifically for emails connected to a domain that you put in. So it might show work emails available at a certain company. But again, what is the software architecture of Hunter? Is it using typical search engine architecture? Because if it is, then it's going to be subject to the same limitations that those search engines are subject to. So this is one of those cases where, and I mentioned this to somebody who emailed me this morning and said that hopefully, we've had some great work with networks over the last couple of years in India, in Indonesia in particular. We have very, very busy networks, and it would be foolish of me to think that I know better than all of these thousands of people that we have in the network, most of whom are smart and hardworking journalists. So please try to network with other people, because they will have a breadth and a depth of experience that I could only dream of when you look at the cumulative effect of all these people that we have working in this field now. I would always encourage you to share information. We all benefit in that way, because if you're willing to share information, people will be willing to share information with you also. And the saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. And I've seen a lot of people learn so much, but also the very same people teaching so much to the others in their network. Now, we do have another session tomorrow, and that is going to be talking about protecting yourself online, and both in terms of physical and virtual security, and ways that not only you can fight off the demons, but ways in which you can use your own online and investigative behavior to protect yourself. The recordings of these sessions are going to be available to you guys until the end of March. So please, if you need to look back on these, please do so. If you then find that something piques your interest and you say, oh, why didn't I ask that at the time? As I've said, so many times, it's never too late. Do not ever feel that you have missed the moment and that you can't ask a question. You'll see my contact details here. My email is there. You can also search out OSINT Essentials on Twitter, and that has open direct messaging. So it does not need me to be following you in order for me to get your message. And I do try to get back to people as quickly as I can and with the best information that I can. I can't guarantee 100% I will have a solution for every single query, but please, if a question occurs to you tomorrow or next week, or you wake up in a cold sweat at 5 a.m. thinking, why didn't I ask that? It's not too late. Don't be a stranger. Always feel free to get in touch. And I know that Chingy as well has given you her contact details, and she will be also obliging and helpful. We love these kind of exchanges because we also learn from them. So thanks again. I'll give it a moment or two just in case any further questions come through. But if not, feel free to leave whenever you want to. And thanks a lot for your time again. I know you're all busy people. And I will hang on for another few minutes. If you have questions, I'll be here for another 5 minutes anyway. Otherwise, all I can say is have a great evening. And I will see you again soon.